Stay tuned for the Sean Casey Show, a podcast for patriots. Welcome back. This is the Sean Casey Show, a podcast for patriots. I am Sean Casey, and this is where we, the resistance, meet each and every episode. This is where we stop the transformation of this incredible, exceptional nation called the United States of America. Are trying to drag us into their Marxist hellhole. This is where we stand up and fight. This is where we take a stand and we draw the line. And joining us in the battle is our producer and researcher, Double X is here, Michelle Drusella. Hello, Michelle.
Hi, Sean. How was your weekend?
Weekend was wonderful. And yours? I know you spent it with the grandkids, right?
Mine was very busy, but it was great. Yeah, when the twins got baptized, and we just had a great time. Great time for seeing family again, and everybody got together. So
it's always about family. Family always comes first.
It does.
And I'm glad that you had a great weekend with yours, because these are special milestones and memories that will last a lifetime.
It is.
So that is I'm so happy to hear. So congratulations.
Thank you.
We certainly appreciate that. Mm-hmm. We do want to say goodbye to one of our dear friends and colleagues. Our executive producer, Joe Hosny Armacost, is moving. He's leaving the show. Yeah. And he's headed towards Florida, where he's going to continue to produce another podcast. And so I've known Joe for over 30 years, and he is a great talent. We're sad to see him go, but we think Michelle will step right into the shoes here and be our new executive producer. And so we wish Joe all the best.
We do. We will miss him.
And we're going to miss him, but we're going to give you an opportunity now to stand up and fill some mighty big shoes. So I don't put pressure on you.
That's all right.
Do that. But we're going to miss him. And best of luck moving forward. Best wishes, Joe. Yep. And in your new future and new endeavors. And I'm sure we'll meet again. I'm sure we'll work up again at some point.
Yes, we will.
In time. So today we got a lot of ground to cover. We have the Durham fallout continues to be weighed. The bribery document will be viewed this week, albeit in a skiff. We have more on Hunter's mole. That hasn't been mentioned in quite some time. I'm talking about the, an insider, not the mole on his face.
Right.
I want to make sure we clarify that. The deep state is getting desperate, and reasons and how we know why. Biden's decline continues to be a topic of great interest, as is, we have some authoritarian acts we're going to share with you today, including a children's choir that went to our nation's capital to sing the national anthem inside the Capitol, and they were shut down by the United States Capitol Police. How about that?
That's horrible.
If you don't think communism and Marxism is rearing its ugly head here in the United States. And we'll take a peek at the roast and ride. That's out in Iowa, which is ground zero for all presidential politics right now. And a lot of these candidates sound very similar, very familiar to another candidate. We'll see if we can make that connection for you here as well. We start with our founding father, John Adams. In his speech to the U.S. House of Representatives on foreign policy, this was on Independence Day, 1821. And he is warning here about foreign entanglements like President Washington did. And I thought his speech was really good. We're just going to read a part of it. Every time you hear the word she, it refers to the United States of America. So I just want to get that out there. She has uniformly spoken among them, although often to heedless and often to disdainful ears, the language of equal liberty, of equal justice, and of equal rights. She has, in the lapse of nearly half a century, without a single exception, respected the independence of other nations while asserting and maintaining her own. She has abstained from interference in the concerns of others, even when the conflict has been for principles to which she clings, as to the last vital drop that visits the heart. She has seen that probably for centuries to come, all the contests of the Dama, the European world, will be contests of inveterate power and emerging right. Wherever the standard of freedom and independence has been or shall be unfurled, there will be her heart, her benediction, and her prayers to be. But she goes not abroad in search of monsters to destroy. She is the well-wisher to freedom and independence for all. She is the champion and vindicator only of her own. She will commend the general cause by the countenance of her voice and the sympathy of her example. She well knows that once enlisting under other banners than her own, and were they even the banners of foreign independence, she would involve herself beyond the power of extrication in all the wars of interest and intrigue, of individual avarice, envy, and ambition, which assume the colors and usurp the standard of freedom. She is the fundamental maxim of her policy would insensibly change from liberty to force. She might become the dictatress of the world. She would no longer be the ruler of her own spirit.
Wow.
Nice words from John Adams about how to, avoid foreign wars and foreign entanglements. Look, be the voice, be the example, be the shining city on the hill, be the beacon of freedom, but let others figure it out like we did. Okay, let others fight for their freedom, fight for their independence. If they ask for our aid, well, okay, that'll be a decision we can make, but don't insert yourself into another country's concerns.
And that's what we do. Yeah.
Yeah. And you can see the problems it has led to. We haven't won a war since World War II. Vietnam was a quagmire. Remember that term? Mm-hmm. And Afghanistan, even worse. 10-year war for Vietnam, 20-year war. And as we all know, the police action called Korea was a nightmare as well. So I think that members of Congress ought to go back and read that speech from John Adams to the House of Representatives on Independence Day, 1821. I think there is a lesson to be learned there of great import. All right, so that's our founding father. What you like to start with? I think the other thing I wanted to mention is the big boom, the sonic boom that was heard all throughout the DMV.
Did you hear it?
I did not hear it.
My son heard it.
Oh, really?
He heard it. He was like, when he saw it on TV, he was like, that's it. That's the sound. And I was like, well, that's what it was.
Yeah. Again, where I live is about an hour northeast of DC.
That's true. Okay.
Yeah, so I think that if you're a little bit closer, you may have heard it. But and this had to do, as we find out, it was a private owned jet that was on its way from Tennessee to Long Island. And at some point in time, something happened in that aircraft where they lost either pressure or the pilot passed out or all of the above.
Right.
And then it was on autopilot and it made a U-turn back from I guess the direction it came from. And they had to scramble F-16s out of Andrews Air Force Base. It was coming at such a high rate of speed. And it was a bogey because that wasn't part of the flight plan. And everybody that's in that little bubble around DC, you're required to, file what's called a instrumental flight rules or IFR. And if it doesn't match up with it, boom, they go right at you. And they shot flares at the thing. They said they looked like the pilot was passed out. They got that close. And unfortunately, the pilot was passed out. Unfortunately, they ran out of fuel. And they crashed into the mountains of Virginia, down near Stanton, Virginia, near the Blue Ridge Parkway. No survivors. This was a family, a daughter, a granddaughter, and a nanny perished along with the pilot. Very sad indeed. It is. So we won't wait for the official investigation from the NTSB. But I started thinking it's highly unusual to lose pressure unless there was something wrong with and of course, normally if they begin to lose that, I think they were flying at 34,000 feet.
Yes, they were.
Then the pilot will take you down to where you don't need the pressurized cap. So we don't know why that happened. Maybe the black box, if it does have a black box, will tell us why. But I started immediately thinking, we've heard of all these scares that pilots have had regarding the jab.
Yep, me too.
And that was one of the first things that crossed my mind was he boosted? I do think that there should be, because we've heard from a number of pilots that have concerns regarding these jabs. Now that we know that you have a better, higher risk of getting infected from the jab and having side effects from multiple jabs than you do just from getting COVID. And so there's myocarditis. There are all sorts of other problems that could. I don't know if there's enough to do an autopsy. I mean, I know that's somewhat grim, but I do think that they owe it to the families and to the nation, especially since it was like wall-to-wall coverage all day yesterday. And to find out what exactly caused this crash, and was this a side effect of the jab, or was it mechanical, or was it something else? But just thought I'd throw that out there. I think every pilot should undergo a complete, from head to toe, medical, physical evaluation if they've had the jab. Because
it makes sense.
A lot of airlines made them get it. Let's see if there's any underlying problems there. Because, again, I know that's going to scare a lot of people, especially those who fly.
A stress test would be good. I mean,
right. My uncle was a pilot for United, and he survived a crash.
Wow.
But he had a metal plate in his arm and in his head but he saved a lot of people that day. And they're incredible people, these pilots. They really are. Pilots and co-pilots. But I want to make sure they're safe, they're secure, and then in turn, all the passengers as well. So we don't know, but I think it's worth a look-see. And a reminder that we're not out of the woods yet. We're still going to find out what some of these long-term effects of the COVID jab could be.
There's questions about Jamie Foxx and his medical condition.
Right. There's that journalist, AJ Benz, that says that he has a source inside the room there, Jamie Foxx, that said that he was paralyzed and blind.
Yes.
And it was definitely from the jab. He had suffered some kind of mini stroke or some kind of adverse reaction from right after, and he was on, I think, filming a movie at the time, and so
I think it was too.
Might be a reason why they don't want that information getting out. It could scuttle the movie, so because it could be lawsuits and any number of things. So we'll
because he had to be jabbed. He was
that was the direction of the film company. All right, so again, that's just, we're still finding out some of this stuff, and it's still very breathtaking and eye-opening. Speaking of which, great interview yesterday on Maria Bartiromo. Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna, she's a MAGA Republican. She joined Maria on Sunday morning, and during this discussion, Congresswoman Luna spoke out about the lawlessness of the federal government and the DOJ in the United States. She was talking about Hunter and Joe Biden, the bribery scandal. We'll get to more of that in just a second. But in it, it's been a long time since we heard of One Eye. One Eye is apparently a mole that was in there advising Hunter Biden as to what was going on with the investigations and where the investigations were headed, where they were going. And it was sort of an FBI mole that was helping Hunter Biden avoid criminal investigations and criminal prosecution. So here is the exchange between Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna and Maria Bartiromo yesterday.
The FBI is protecting the Hunter Biden family, and it's not okay.
How long has this been going on, and what about this intimidation that we're hearing about on these whistleblowers?
This corruption scheme has been going back to the time that Joe Biden was vice president. And the intimidation scheme that we're seeing, I mean, it's not unheard of. We saw this happen with former Trump officials as well. Obviously, President Trump's family has been subject to this. But what's really alarming about this is, as we know, the FBI, has a mole in there that's advising Hunter Biden as to the investigations by the name of One Eye, which, in saying it sounds like it's something out of a James Bond movie, but unfortunately it's true. And then also, too, I mean, my goodness, Maria, with the amount of evidence that's coming forward, it's scary to think that this guy that's currently sitting in the White House has become this corrupt, and it's really only doing one thing, and that's aiding and abetting the Communist Chinese Party.
Indeed it is. But what's interesting now is that we're getting more and more leaks about the actual bribery document. For $5 million, we're being told a foreign national was going to pay Joe Biden $5 million for access to information that foreign national needed as a representative of his or her country. And what we're being told is it was not China, that it was another adversary. It was another hostile country. Well, it can't be that many. I mean, it's a short list, folks.
Right.
It's either Russia or Iran or North Korea, maybe on the outside of Syria, perhaps. I mean, that's a possibility. But those are, I mean, I don't count Cuba and Venezuela as meaningful actors. I really don't. So it was either Russia, and Russia's got a very good, spying apparatus, and they may have done a little compromise on Hunter Biden with some of these Russian hookers, and so I would say they're on my list number one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and then Iran, and then North Korea, and then I think it's a very short list, so I will have to wait and see what happens. But what the FBI is going to do, they're going to bring the document alleging this Biden criminal bribery scheme to Capitol Hill, and there's going to be they're going to have to view it in a skiff. And what that means, that secure or sensitive compartmental information facility, it is like in a Faraday cage. You can't hack into it with any kind of hacking or computer or phone, or it stops all electronic devices. Number one, you're not even allowed to bring your device into the skiff.
You gotta lock it up.
That's a no-no. You can't take photos. You can't write anything down. You can only look at it. You can't make copies. You can't take anything out of the skiff. You can only look at it. And so hopefully James Comer has a photographic mind or
really?
Because he's really going to need it. And that is something that I think that, again, Congress has every bit of authority to deliver oversight of the FBI and the Justice Department and the executive branch. And that's the way the checks and balances work. So I have to wait and see because, Jamie Raskin is on that committee. He's a real radical. And we'll see what Comer, if anybody can find out. But I mean, it's a serious allegation that a foreign national tried to bribe either successfully or unsuccessfully the president of the United States, Joe Biden. And that is something that we're going to have to wait and see if there's a smoking gun. Perhaps there is. But maybe not. The other big story is that Fusion GPS, which started the dirty dossier, Christopher Steele, they withheld 1,500 documents from the Durham investigation on the origins of the Trump-Russia hoax, and Durham did not take legal action. In fact, we know John Durham did not subpoena Comey, did not subpoena or interview Peter Strzok, did not subpoena or interview Andy McCabe, the deputy director, did not subpoena or interview Lisa Page. So maybe James Baker was in there as well. So there are at least maybe up a half dozen principal players in the Russia hoax that did not get a subpoena. They were not interviewed by John Durham, and now we're finding 1,500 documents may not have been withheld as well.
Thought they were going to interview him and get him for a hearing. I'd like to know why.
It is coming up in, I believe, I was hearing first it was May 25th. Now it's June. It's later in the month of June. So again, remember, Bill Barr, the former Attorney General, is a swamp rat. He's the one that handpicked John Durham, and it looks like John Durham, to save face, he did. Basically lay the FBI out to dry, but with no smoking gun evidence that would convict any of them right now. Basically just saying, you guys really effed up, but no one's going to be held accountable. No one's going to pay for it.
More of the same from them.
Yeah, it is. And that's why we don't have much confidence in the DOJ, especially the seventh floor, not the rank and file agents who are trying to protect us each and every day. So radical Jamie Raskin, I know he is just recovering from chemotherapy, from cancer, and our thoughts and prayers go out to him and his family. But they just rang the bell, when they are pronounced cancer free, and that's always a good thing for any family to hear. But I don't get. Have you seen pictures of him? Have you seen him on television?
I just did.
I don't get the do-rag.
Do-rag, yeah.
Yeah, I don't understand that. I understand a lot of women wear scarves and things of that nature because of their hair, losing their hair. But I think everybody knows he made no secret that he was fighting and battling cancer.
Right.
So he's wearing he's wearing a do-rag on his head.
Well, it surprises me because, a lot of times when you wear a do-rag, especially men, that's colors of gangs, isn't it? I mean,
it could be, yeah. It could be. Maybe just sending a message to Antifa. I have no idea.
Right.
But Raskin, now you heard the story about the leak from Jack Smith, the special counsel investigating the Mar-a-Lago documents. Allegedly, there's supposed to be a recording.
Yes.
On that recording, former President Trump is supposed to be talking about a document that has been classified that he talks about taking with him when he allegedly leaves the White House. We don't hear on the audio recording. Nobody's heard it yet. We've only heard characterizations of it, which in and of itself is a huge problem.
Yeah.
That you've got news cycles feeding this stuff and nobody's seen it. Nobody's heard it. They're all going on speculation.
It's just like the nuclear codes. He had the nuclear codes with it in Mar-a-Lago.
And in this particular case, you've got Raskin saying that he's already pronounced guilt of former President Trump.
And if a person acts with consciousness of their own guilt or consciousness of their own potential wrongdoing, that demonstrates that if they go forward nonetheless, there's intent.
Not necessarily. Let me give you an example. Let's say the intent was, well, I'm this, and apparently General Milley was criticizing Trump, and Trump says, there's a document that can prove him wrong or prove me right or whatever. And I'm just going to take that with me for safekeeping. And at that point, if he takes it without declassifying it out of the White House, out of a classified section, then that would be culpable. But what we don't know is at what point did President Trump declassify this information? Now, there's a time or a point in a conversation where he talked about that. I have to go back and look at the date again. It may have been right before he left. I'm thinking it's about a week or so before he left office in 21, before Joe Biden was installed in that rigged election. If that conversation took prior to that, okay, I think, no sweat, no problem. If it allegedly occurred after, it could be that long after, because he left the White House on January 20 of 2021. Oh, no. So we have to look at the timestamp on that to find out. But people like Alan Dershowitz and others, they've looked at this thing, as John Cole, another one of an attorney, and they have concluded as a result. Let me read the conclusion. Based on what we know, Professor Dershowitz writes, we believe there's no legitimate basis for a criminal indictment of Mr. Trump based on material that was found at Mar-a-Lago. And that is not a fan of Trump. In fact, Professor Dershowitz said he voted for Biden. I would like to ask him again, would he vote for Biden again this time around? But one of the president's attorneys, Timothy Parliator, talks about there's no smoking gun here.
I don't think that you can form intent from the recording by itself unless you match it up with the document. It's clear from the reports about this tape, he was upset about things that Mark Milley had said publicly about him. He was pushing back on that, and he said, essentially, he's lying. I have a document to prove it, but I can't show it to you because it's classified.
All right, well, there it is. So there's an admission that there is a document, and he knows that Milley is lying, but he can't show it to you because it's classified. That's upholding the classified rules. That's not violating the classified rules. Now, they're going to say he took that document with him before he declassified. Well, how do you know? Were you in the room at the time? The president can basically just think it. He can will it because he's the only one unilaterally as executive, as the head of the executive branch, that can order the declassification of any and all documents. It can happen just like that. Congress can't do that. Only the president. They have to go through a fairly strict, rigorous schedule of protocols in order to do that. So this is just more of the same. That being said, Joe Biden continues to struggle mentally and physically. Last week, he had the fall at the United States Air Force Academy in Colorado Springs. And he also had a couple of mental brain farts, if you will. I don't even know if I characterize them as brain farts because there has to be a clearly functioning brain in order to do that. And I don't mean that as a joke. I mean that he's got cognitive impairment. And here's what he said about the United States Air Force Thunderbirds.
By the way, I met with who are those guys that fly over shortly? You heard of them, haven't you? 3 of them are women. So don't screw around, guys.
So you're at the Air Force Academy.
Right.
And you would think you would know the name, or if you forgot, you've been briefed on it, or maybe you'd have a little cheat sheet in front of you because we know he likes cheat sheets. Yeah. He could not remember. The Blue Angels are Navy. The Thunderbirds are Air Force. Okay.
And then I don't think he was joking around about that either, you know.
Then he said there were 3 women. And, you know, what I always do is I fact check Joe Biden on everything he says.
Got to.
I think he's either lying or he's forgotten, you know, what the truth is. Nice way of saying it, isn't it?
Yes.
So in this particular case, there is 1 female F-16 pilot in the United States Air Force Thunderbirds. And that is, I think it's Lieutenant Michelle Curran. Another Michelle, there you go.
Yeah.
But it's not 3, just 1.
No.
And kudos to her. That's a tough thing to become as an F-16 pilot. So want to congratulate Lieutenant Curran as they have an incredible, the women do make incredible pilots. They're very precision flyers. And the only problem I have is I just don't think they should be involved in combat. But if you're going to put them in an F-16, they better be ready. As far as that goes.
For sure.
So then all the resulting discussions on Biden's physical and mental capabilities propped up in D.C., outside the Beltway, inside the Beltway. And during Donald Trump's town hall last week in Iowa, I think it was Thursday night, it came up once again. But Trump revealed what he had told Sean Hannity, because Sean Hannity used to make light of Joe Biden's pratfalls. And, you know, it's one thing because, look, they're trying to say now every president falls. No, every president doesn't fall. Donald Trump did not fall, to my knowledge, that we saw. We've had other presidents fall. We've had George Bush fall off his mountain bike. We've had, again, his father, Bush 41, choke on a pretzel and throw up on the Japanese prime minister. Oh,
that's right. Yeah.
So we've had Reagan, I think, take a tumble. Gerald Ford. They used to remember Chevy Chase on Saturday Night Live used to crucify Joe Ford for being a clumsy oaf.
Yes.
Joe Ford was an All-American starting center at the University of Michigan football team. All right, so he was an athlete.
Right.
So not every president does fall. But here's the point. All right, so what? We have all tripped or perhaps fallen down in our lives, 2 left feet, whatever. It's happened to me. I'm sure it's happened to you, Michelle.
Me too. Yes.
It's not that you fall. It's the repetitiveness of these falls over and over and over again, off a bike, tripping over a sandbag,
tripping up the stairs,
steps, tripping up the stairs of Air Force One. So again, this is an ongoing pattern of physical weakness and being mentally decrepit in an aging brain that perhaps has signs of dementia. As you know, I just recently lost my mother. I didn't talk about it for the last year and a half because I saw what dementia can do. It is a devastating disease.
It is.
It robs you of your memories and eventually your motor functions to the point where you can't walk, and at the end you can't swallow. You forget how to swallow, and then that is a tough way to go. So I wish the best for Joe Biden. But I don't think he belongs in as president of the leader of the free world making decisions on nuclear weapons. We had the Chinese rattling their saber in the Straits of Taiwan over the weekend with a warship trying to confront our warship.
I know. It's getting dangerous.
Okay. And isn't it odd how an F-16 gets scrambled just like that to shoot down an American aircraft if necessary? Because those are the orders.
Right.
Rules of engagement. If they will not comply, if they try to fly over the White House, or let's shoot. So they scramble those F-16s in a moment's notice, yet a Chinese spy craft hovers across the country for 8 days.
I know. It doesn't make any sense at all.
So there it is. And Trump, again, talks here about not joking about Joe Biden's infirmities.
Honestly, I don't think it looks good for you or for anybody for you to joke about it. So I said, I just don't think it's good for anybody. And, it's not appropriate. You can speak about it if you want, but I don't think you should joke about it.
And again, I think that's in poor taste to joke. I mean, you could joke about gaffes and faux pas and things of that nature,
right.
But the actual physical and mental the cognitive impairment, the decline, that is sad for the country. It's a national security issue.
It really is. It really is.
So Molly Hemingway, and again, I'm going to play a Republican and I'm going to play a Democrat. And this is what they had to say about Biden's age. First up, Molly Hemingway, editor of The Federalist.
More than the physical ailments, I think it's the mental situation that people are concerned about. And we have a media that will work very hard to make it sound like it's no big deal that Biden is having all these stumbles, physical or verbal. But it's actually something the whole world can see. And the whole world doesn't care what corporate media says about how it's all okay. They look, they see that he's feeble. They wonder who's really in charge. They are concerned about his mental health, his mental situation. And that's something that I think a lot of Americans are worried about. A lot of Democrats are worried about as they're thinking about who to have as their nominee.
Yeah, well, I don't wonder who's in charge. I know who's in charge, and it's Barack Hussein Obama. This is his third term. I tell you how desperate the Democrats are getting, and the deep state. They're now floating the possibility of Obama joining the ticket and replacing Kamala Harris in 24. And
I heard about that.
You can't do that, right? Because
they say that.
They say that, but it's never been challenged in a court of law, because if you go back and you read the 22nd Amendment, it says a president shall not be elected to the office of the president.
And we know the Democrats like to parse words, so that's what they'll do.
So he wouldn't be elected if he's placed on the ticket to the office of president, because he'd be elected to the office of vice president.
That's right.
And so the 22nd Amendment says it does not say you can't ascend as vice president and serve as president. It says you cannot be elected more than twice to be president. So that's the latest grist for the mill from the Democrats. I heard that they approached Michelle, just a soft feeler or inquiry. She said, no thanks. Thanks, but no thanks. But you never know with Barack. But again, why would he want to court that kind of attention? He's basically calling the shots now. But now they're afraid that if they don't put somebody in there that's really, really good, they're going to lose the White House in 2024. That's where that is coming from. And on the other side of the aisle, Stephen A. Smith, as you know, sports commentator, sports analyst for ESPN on First Take. He is a Democrat. He was approached to run in the state of Pennsylvania by Governor Ed Rendell at one point. He declined. He says, I'm not a liberal or I'm not a conservative, but and again, it would be hard to peg him, because on some things he does sound like he's a conservative. On other things, he sounds like he's a card-carrying member of the left. In this particular case, he is questioning whether or not Biden's age is a disqualifier. Once again, here's Stephen A. Smith.
Because, ladies and gentlemen, without trying to engage in any kind of ageism at all, because I don't believe in it, there does come a point in time where there are certain jobs you don't need. It's not that you don't need to be working. It's not that you don't need to be living your life. It's not that you don't need to be living a very vibrant lifestyle or anything like that. But there are responsibilities that are far, far, far more extensive than, let's say, the typical 9 to 5 that somebody in their 80s may not need to be doing. I think the presidency is one of them. I do.
Yeah, and he's right. The presidency is one of them. You need to have your faculties with you at all times. Now, Joe Biden's 80. Donald Trump is 76. Soon to be 77 in election year.
But Trump could run circles around Biden any day.
Trump runs circles around 50-year-olds.
Yes, exactly.
And one of the reasons why, I mean, like he doesn't eat and has the best diet because he's a little overweight, but he doesn't smoke, he doesn't drink. Those two things are key.
It's huge.
Yeah. And
no drugs.
Yeah. No drugs, no cigarettes, no tobacco, no alcohol whatsoever. And he does get a lot of exercise playing golf, because he plays golf a lot. And so when you're out there walking the course, of course, he rides a cart a lot. But again, look, I think not only is he physically a much better specimen than Joe Biden, I think mentally there's no question. There is no question. But the Democrats are afraid that Biden and Kamala Harris are going to lose them the White House in 2024. So it wouldn't surprise me if they, because look, they rigged it for Hillary and then lost. They did the same thing for Joe Biden, and they'll do the same thing now. Bernie Sanders got screwed, and so that is something that other Democrats, again, if they can, and they will, they could very easily try to fix it for Obama in 2024. I hope. And pray they don't.
I know, me either.
But we'll have to wait and see. So more signs that our country is slipping down that rabbit hole of Marxism, authoritarianism, totalitarianism, communism, all the isms, is what happened, I think, to the Rushing Brook Children's Choir from Greenwood, South Carolina. just a couple of weeks ago, they had scheduled a tour to Washington. They had also scheduled a tour to the U.S. Capitol. They asked their representatives of South Carolina and the Speaker, Kevin McCarthy, if they could perform inside Statutory Hall or Statutory Hall, I should say, inside the Capitol. And they got permission to do that. And so I'm sure there was a communication problem, but even if there wasn't, what you're about to see and hear, was it really necessary to do this to a group of visiting children in a choir singing our national anthem? Now, we've kind of cut the first verse of the national anthem out. They did a great job, by the way.
Oh, it's beautiful.
But we go to the second verse, and I want you to pay attention, those that are watching. You'll see in the distance behind the children and the conductor or choir director, you'll see some people talking to a female U.S. Capitol Police officer. And you'll pay attention because at some point, one of the men, and he was verified as being traveling with the Rushing Children's Choir, he comes over to the choir director, says something in his ear, and the choir director gives the sign, that's it, no more. And in the middle, or actually closer to the end of the second verse, but they stop singing.
Yes, they do.
All right. So let's take a listen, or if you're watching, you can see this is the Rushing Brook Children's Choir inside U.S. Statutory Hall in our Capitol being shut down by the United States Capitol Police. And that's it. Children stopped singing.
I wouldn't have. If I was the conductor, I would have finished it. Sorry. It was only one more phrase.
When you go back and you look, I've watched this video now 20 times, and you can see the U.S. Capitol Police officer, the female, is talking with this man. I think his name is Ray, R-E-A. His last name.
Was he with the group?
He was with the group. We have confirmed that he was with the group. And then he starts to walk away. Like he was, I don't know, maybe I'm going to go talk to the speaker. I'm going to go talk to my congressman or whatever. And she taps him on the back, grabs him on the back. And I don't know what she said, but it could be, you go tell them to stop singing now. Okay. And he did. And they did.
I know.
Now, can you imagine?
I don't think I would have stopped.
In the United States Capitol, paid for by the taxpayers of the United States of America. A children's choir singing the national anthem. And the reason why the Capitol Police originally told them they couldn't sing is because singing is not allowed in the Capitol. I'd like to challenge that before the Supreme Court. Unless you have a permit. I guess they don't want anybody coming in, setting up shop and like the street performers in New York City.
Right. Okay.
Or DC. I guess they didn't want a free-for-all having, and I get that.
Yeah.
But that's not what this was. And you can decide it on an individual basis. If someone is being disruptive or disrespectful, you can then ask them to leave. If they don't leave, you can usher them out. These were children. A children's choir singing the national anthem. The founder and director of the Rushing Brook Children's Choir, David Rosbach, said, quote, "I was shocked. I was dismayed. I was stunned. I couldn't believe that was happening, that they would stop the national anthem of all songs." Well, you better believe it, because that's where we are today in this Marxist, it's circling the drain, folks. That's why we need help. That's why we need fellow patriots to spread the word, because this is bad news. And it is something that, because communists don't care. First thing they do is come for God and guns, and of course religion, and then they start with the patriotism. There's an economic, cultural, patriotic war being waged on America and on Americans. And this is being done under the color of authority. I imagine if it was a black children's choir that was singing, I doubt they would have been asked to stop or perhaps leave. I mean, I don't know for sure, but I doubt it. So why would you pick on a white children's choir, or if it say was an Asian choir? It doesn't matter to me, the ethnicity. I think right now, the U.S. Capitol Police picking on this children's choir, and they're now claiming it was a miscommunication. They did have a permit. They were asked. It was okayed, and somebody never told Miss Busybody, U.S. Capitol Police officer. But this is a lingering effect, if you will, of J6, which, by the way, I'm sad to report that Marjorie Taylor Greene has now flip-flopped on the releasing of the videos to all of America. She has come out and said something along the lines of, I got the quote in front of me, I'll find it, I'll share it with you. But she's using the argument that, well, George Soros and his radical Soros bots, MoveOn.org type radical lefties and progressives, they would pour through these tapes trying to identify people and then dox them. And I don't want to put them in harm's way. These are American patriots. They're already in harm's way. Nothing you can say or do is going to further endanger them. Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, I'm just wondering who got to her. Because all of a sudden, remember, she was bosom buddies with Kevin McCarthy during his battle for speakership. And then last week on the debt ceiling deal, the Fiscal Responsibility Act, same thing. And now she does not want, and by the way, they released him to John Solomon.
That's what I was going to ask. Yep.
Julie Kelly, great reporter.
Okay.
Both are great reporters, but Julie Kelly wrote a book about J6. And then a third outlet, which is yet to be identified. Well, how is that being transparent? It's not. So keep that in mind.
Probably a Soros. Probably a Soros outlet or something. Soros ran.
so maybe on the next episode, either on Wednesday or Friday, I'll tell you what's happening at an Idaho high school there. Another display of incredible authoritarianism as well, and what's going on at Six Flags. So lots happening there. We've got incredible amount of information now about illegal aliens and the like. But I want to get to the next clip because if you heard my commentary on Saturday as to what's driving the drag shows, the queer indoctrination, the alphabet mafia radical agenda, it is indeed the globalists. It is indeed the World Economic Forum. And
that was terrific commentary.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And did a little digging on that. Thanks to the good folks at Revolver that helped to investigate that as well. But I just want to, I'm not going to redo the whole thing. You can go and check out the commentary, the global pride scheme. But one of the culprits is Beth Brooke Martiniak of a company called EY. She's the former global director of social consciousness, or whatever they're calling it these days. And the program is called PGLE, or the Partnership for Global Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, Transgender, blah, 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 equality. And this is founded by 7 companies. We already named the names. It's now up to 270 companies. But guess who planted the seed in her head to do this several years ago?
In Davos a couple of years ago, Vice President Biden met privately with those of us working behind the scenes, and he sat down with us and looked us in the eye, and he said, you companies can do what we government cannot and will never do. You have to change the world on this issue.
That's Biden. Because he knows it's still fascism, whether government does it or whether government contracts private companies to do it. But he didn't want to suffer the blowback. Okay. And that's the reason why he doesn't have the political stones to go and do this. Yeah. But he signed that proclamation. We shared that with you in a previous episode. He's okay with top and bottom minor mutilation surgeries.
Right.
And so why not? And this is all about global dominance. There are globalists in the White House, globalists in the United States Senate in both parties, and globalists in the U.S. House of Representatives in both parties. That is our task, to defeat the globalists or the swamp, whatever you want to call them, establishment. And the person best equipped to do that is Donald Trump. It's not Ron DeSantis. I do like Governor DeSantis, and I think he's shown a little bit of spark and fight in the state of Florida. But right now, latest poll I just saw, Donald Trump's up 20 points on Ron DeSantis in Florida, in his home state. That's elected governor twice.
Well, the Floridians don't want to lose him either.
Right.
That's what I think.
You're right about that. Yeah. They don't want to lose him. and they want Trump. And it's killing two birds with one stone.
Yes, exactly.
Speaking of Trump, and Joni Ernst, the rhino from Iowa, was a veteran. I had great hopes for her. Remember that TV ad that she had way back when she was going to? Well, she had the hogs in her ads, and she was going to go to Washington to slaughter all the pork. Well, that hasn't happened, folks. So Joni is fallen by the wayside, much as Marjorie Taylor Greene seems to be doing now. And she holds this thing called Roast and Ride. I want you to listen to some of the clips I pulled and tell me who you think they remind you of. First up, Vice President Mike Pence. He's going to announce this week, I believe it's Thursday. We hear that Chris Sununu is out. He's not going to run. The governor, Doug Bergstrom of North Dakota, is going to get in. And we also hear that there's going to be Chris Christie is going to get in this week as well. But listen to this. Sounds awfully familiar to me.
We rebuilt our military. We revived our economy by cutting taxes and regulation. We unleashed American energy, and we became a net exporter of energy and energy independent for the first time in 75 years.
There it is. Okay, we built the military and our energy policy, two of the biggest planks in the Trump doctrine.
Yeah.
Here is South Carolina Senator Tim Scott.
On my first day, I would sign again the XL Keystone Pipeline and start bringing energy back to our nation. National security is energy security.
There it is. Who made us energy independent?
Trump.
Who was on the verge of making us energy dominant?
Yeah, Trump.
Yeah. Here's Asa Hutchinson.
He's wrong on energy policy. We need a pro-growth energy policy in this country, which means that our president is not going to have to go to Saudi Arabia or Venezuela and say, can you please produce more oil? We're going to produce oil in this country. We're going to drill, and we're going to have all energy sources.
Sounds a heck of a lot like Donald Trump to me, his policies, even his words. And then finally, there is Nikki Haley.
When I was at the United Nations, there were two things that I knew Russia, China, Iran never wanted us to have. They never wanted us to have a strong military, and they never wanted us to be energy independent. We will do both of those. Strong militaries don't start wars. Strong militaries prevent wars.
Strong militaries, strong energy policy, border. I mean, these are Trump's policies.
Yep.
Now, what would you rather have? The real thing, the real McCoy, or a bunch of wannabes?
Oh, definitely the real McCoy.
We need
Trump.
He's proven himself.
Yes. And can't be bought.
Right. He's already done it. Can't be bought. Is running again. And right now is up by 20, 30 points over most of the field. Yep. So it's a head scratcher to me, but you know what? This is what the Republicans do. They're just Democrats, no debates. Joe Biden's it. Let's move on.
That isn't going to work.
Yeah. I'm not saying no one should be a king. You don't coronate, but again, come on. I mean, there's nobody. They're all parroting his policies. Okay, and maybe they're just jockeying for vice president at this point. Who knows?
Cabinet.
Yeah, exactly. Time for our cringe moment of the day. This one happens to be our very own governor here in Maryland, Wes Moore, as he lit the government house up in orange on Friday night for Gun Violence Awareness Day. Yes, I'm aware of violence committed with those people using guns. They're called criminals. They're called thugs. But no, we got to blame the gun. And he took it a step further.
Public safety is the #1 concern for me as the governor and for my administration. And we are going to act aggressively to make sure that people can feel safe in their own communities, in their own homes, and in their own skin. And that includes being able to focus on getting these illegal guns out of our streets and out of our communities, keeping these violent offenders out of neighborhoods. But also it means that people should not be able to carry a firearm anywhere they want to go and do anything they want to do with it. That's not safety. And I'm focused on the safety of our people.
There's something creepy about that young man.
There is. And the fact is that, do you know the only bill that they passed that was remotely have anything to do with guns and public safety is taking guns out of the hands of law-abiding Marylanders.
Exactly. The bad guys are going to get guns no matter what.
SB 1 is the name of the bill. There was nothing passed to get repeat violent offenders off the street. Nothing. In fact, they made it easier for juveniles to commit crimes in Maryland. So much so that 16 and 17-year-olds are now recruiting 10, 11-year-olds to commit crimes for them because they know they cannot be charged in the state of Maryland under the Juvenile Justice Reform Act.
We have a curfew.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to get me started on that one. Absolute joke there. A curfew that the cops won't be enforcing, but civilians are being recruited for that.
Oh.
That'll work out real well.
Yeah.
Time for the unhinged moment.
Donald J. Trump is now president of the United States.
A Biden appointee, his name, Professor Justin Hansford. He's an appointee of the United Nations Permanent Forum on People of African Descent, or PFAD. Bet you never heard of that before. But yes, there's a PFAD, and yes, there's a professor who heads it up, and yes, this professor wants $5 million in reparations for each African American who is a descendant of a slave, and here's his reasoning why.
So I come to you today with a novel proposal that we begin to think our own thoughts, propose our own vision of justice, and implement that justice as part of the Permanent Forum on People of African Descent. So I also propose today that we create a new bar association, including lawyers and non-lawyers, to discuss what it means to be repaired in 2023 for crimes that have been done to us and are continuing to be done to us for over 500 years. So for your consideration, Madam Chair, I propose that today we create a new community of legal thinkers that's not limited to lawyers, but includes anyone who is passionate about justice. And we come together and demand that many of the states in this room that have benefited from the legacy of our oppression start the process of apology and reparation, but not on their terms, but on our terms.
Our terms.
One of these days we'll get into the math of this. Can you imagine paying $5 million? I mean, we're already we'll be $36 trillion in debt. This is just absurd. This is more divide and conquer by Marxists at the UN and in the Biden regime. And that is just, as I say, ridiculous.
There's something creepy about that young man.
Yeah, and that too.
I'm all for ethnic diversity, but this is just pandering.
It is. It's pandering for votes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They're trolling for votes. That's what they do. All right. So that's going to do it for us today. Thanks for joining us here on the Sean Casey Show, a podcast for Patriots. Our Pockets of Patriots today. D.C. is number one. Okay. And then we find out that I can't even read my own writing here. It is someplace in Georgia is number two.
All right.
We'll find out where and get back to you on that. Crofton, Maryland is Dallas, Georgia. There we go. Dallas, Georgia is in the top 10. Crofton, Maryland, and Yonkers, New York. Those are our Pockets of Patriots here today. Thanks for listening.
Wonderful.
Make sure you download, subscribe, rate, review, spread the wealth to all like-minded patriots. It is time to stand up. We're now moving just 19 days to go, I think, before the next presidential election. And we're going to need your help. And if you want to get in touch with us here, all you do is jot us an email at theshawncaseyshow@gmail.com.
Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction.
And thanks again to our executive producer, Michelle XX Drusilla.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
Thank you. I appreciate that. To our associate producers, Hunter and Logan Casey. We'll be back on Wednesday, Hump Day, for our next episode of the Sean Casey Show. Remember to stay free.